Hello once again, football passers. Welcome to the ever ongoing chat about all things the round ball. And of course, where else to start, I think, this Monday than with the ending of a very unwanted record for Everton at Anfield. 21 or 2 years, I slightly lose track. They'd waited for a win at Anfield and finally they got one in some style. To dissect that and what it means for both sides, as well as a wider ranging chat, I'm delighted to say I've got, well, a man from either side, really, of the red-blue divide, in David Weir, who's had, I think, the perfect weekend, it's fair to say. We'll come on to Rangers in due course. And, of course, Jim Beglin, who sees a lot of Liverpool, sees plenty of Everton. And perhaps, Jim, not totally shocked by what you saw at Anfield on Saturday. Is that fair?
It is, Matt. We were only talking in commentary about the fact that the last couple of seasons, Liverpool have been breaking record after record, and now the records you're hearing are the ones you don't want. Certainly Liverpool fans don't want. Burnley, of course, broke the long unbeaten home run. I remember saying when Manchester City went there not so long ago that they'll never have a better chance of winning at Anfield, having not done so in just over 17 years, I believe. And I said the same thing at the weekend. I think Everton will never have a better opportunity of going to Anfield and win, and they managed to pull it off. And credit to them, they deserved it, because I love the discipline. They had a game plan, and of course, having a game plan is one thing, being able to execute it is another. And I thought they were superb in the dedication to making sure that everything that they worked on was covered. And yeah, fantastic win, overdue, and well played.
Davey, what did you like about the way your old team went about it, the way Carlo Ancelotti set them up?
I think, as Jim said, I think there was a real discipline to their performance in terms of you can see they believe in the manager, they believe in the message they're being given, and they followed it out perfectly, really. I mean, Seamus Coleman, the captain's basically done a man marking job on Andrew Robertson, who's a big asset for Liverpool. So I just think the buy-in from the players with the manager and the following out the tactics that gave them the best chance to win the game. Liverpool are obviously struggling in terms of lacking a little bit of confidence, I think, even though they'd had a good result midweek. But they're missing some big players, and particularly in central defence. And I think that gave Everton an opportunity to go there with a degree of confidence to go, and if they got their performance right, to go and get a result. And it was great. And as you mentioned right at the start, it's been too long, and it's good to see the teams very competitive and Everton having the chance of winning these games.
Yeah, they're right in the mix. Despite a game I saw them against Fulham, Jim, and they were pretty flat that night, and obviously didn't get much change, nor does anyone else at Manchester City. So on the back of those two results, perhaps all the more impressive that they didn't let any of that go with them to Anfield.
But I think that's been the way all season. I think when you look in general at Ancelotti and how he's doing, Everton have improved. There's no doubt about that they've got a class manager in place, and they have been erratic. But who hasn't besides Manchester City this season? I was at the Newcastle game before that, and they lost 2-0 at home to 2 Callum Wilson goals, and they weren't particularly good that day either. But yeah, maybe at times, and particularly in a game like that at Anfield, that they're not going to necessarily dominate the football. But they can use the opportunities they have on the counter-attack to pick things off, and it worked a treat for them again. And going back to what David touched on, I thought Tom Davis was very good. I thought the two centre-backs, Godfrey and Keane, were outstanding. And I love the way Seamus Coleman sacrificed his game to just take Andy Robertson. I think Andy Robertson got one cross in which led to a header, and that was it during the game. And it's not easy to subdue somebody like him because he's just non-stop, he's incessant. So it has been a little... I think Everton's away form has been absolutely wonderful. I think they've ended up now with 13 points from the last available 15, whereas at home they've earned 1 point from the last available 15. So there's a huge difference in what they're doing away and at home. And to be honest, there's a few clubs are in a similar vein as well this season.
Yes, and it'll be interesting to see if that changes as and when fans are allowed back in. But Davey, there's a sweet irony, it won't be lost for Tonians, I'm sure not on you, that whilst Liverpool are desperately struggling at centre-half, Everton look like they found an absolute gem, haven't they, in Ben Godfrey?
Yeah, he's really stepped up to the plate. You know, we all knew he was a good player, I think, when Everton signed him and had high hopes, but I think he's exceeded those expectations by the level of his performance, both in central defence and also in full-back positions as well. So he's had a real consistency to his performance, regardless of where he's playing, and he seems to get Everton. You know, you can tell the fans, although they're not at the games, you can tell they like him. They like his work ethic. They like his kind of hunger to play, and you know, he's got a real intensity about the way he defends. So he looks like an Everton player, and you know, hopefully he's a player who's going to be there for a long time. But Everton look strong in those positions at the weekend. You know, Keane again was commanding, was towering, and they seem to have developed a real good partnership very quickly. So we've got good competition for those places, and you know, Liverpool have struggled in that area because of injury, and they're trying to fit sort of round pegs into square holes to a degree. So it's difficult, and that position on the pitch is so important, and I think Everton definitely got the benefit from that at the weekend.
Another injury to the captain, and looks like it might be a few weeks as well, Jim. Obviously, he's been playing Henderson at centre-half, so the choices are even slimmer. But it's also becoming apparent that whilst they've still got problems there and the knock-on effects into midfield, they're not scoring enough goals. That is a headache.
Yeah, I said that in commentary and working the game at the weekend, that it's affected everything. I mean, when you look back to Manchester City last season, when they lost Laporte and Fernandinho had to drop into centre-back, their whole setup became destabilised. It became imbalanced. That's exactly what's happened to Liverpool. I mean, Van Dijk, Gomez, then, of course, Matip, Fabinho, who had dropped in, has gone as well. And now Henderson, who's dropped in there. I mean, it's ridiculous what's happening. You know, throw in Jota to that as well. But I think the whole dynamic to that midfield, you got to remember Fabinho, Henderson, Wijnaldum, all that industry, all that pressing, that huge work rate that they were able to add to the side, that's dissipated. And of course, more so in the home games, the front three have been firing blanks. I think Mo Salah has scored a penalty against Manchester City, and that's the only goal I think they've managed this year so far. So it's hit everything in the side, and I mean, it couldn't get much worse. And it's actually starting to get a little serious now for Liverpool as to where they might end up and how competitive they can be in trying to chase a top four place now.
It is, David. I think sitting here now, and it's only a snapshot, we'd obviously all assume Manchester City may well go on to take top spot, and then it looks increasingly like both Manchester United and Leicester are very well placed for top four finish. So you're looking at West Ham, Chelsea, Liverpool, and perhaps one or two others, Everton included, all scrapping maybe for the one remaining Champions League spot.
Yeah, I agree, and it's such an unpredictable season and such a difficult season to judge in terms of, you know, it's unprecedented in terms of how quickly the fixtures are coming and when the teams are playing, and you know, different aspects that are making this season a real one-off. So there's definitely an opportunity for, you know, the likes of Everton to get into those positions. It's not something that Everton have done regularly, but I think you can see, even though some of the results, particularly at home, have been disappointing, there is the quality there if they can get it right, whereby they can push. And the other teams you've mentioned, I mean, even Tottenham, who are struggling a little bit, they would expect to be in those top four. Chelsea, as you say, West Ham having a great season under David Moyes and showing a real consistency in their performance as well. So because of the variables in terms of the fans not being there when the games are and different things, it's into the unknown for a lot of teams, and Liverpool undoubtedly are struggling with that. You know, injuries got a factor, but not having their fans, not having that support around about them seems to be having a big impact on them as well.
Yeah. Now, at the moment, Manchester City, will see them in the Champions League in midweek against Gladbach, Jim. I can't see where they're going to slip up. They could be on for a quadruple this season on current form.
Yeah, well, it seems to be an annual event, doesn't it? Us talking about the possibility of Manchester City doing a quadruple. I think they suffered at the start of the season as well, didn't they? In terms of they didn't have a proper pre-season like a lot of clubs, and they were slow to get going. But I mean, once they've got into their stride, it's remarkable what he's doing. And I mean, Pep Guardiola, I think the fact that he stayed longer at this club than he stayed, longer anywhere else, I think says that he thinks something special could be achieved as well. So I'm with that line of thought as well. I find it hard to see where Manchester City are going to slip up. They may drop the odd point here and there, but the fact that they're 10 clear of their City rivals, Manchester United, at the moment, I just cannot see that gap being closed sufficiently.
No. And a word on Leicester, perhaps, David. Even though they've done an awful lot of great things in recent seasons, still sometimes go a little under the radar. My perception was that maybe they still relied a little bit on Jamie Vardy for goals, but actually they're starting to solve that conundrum. The likes of Harvey Barnes and James Maddison finding ways to chip in and win games for them. They're pretty impressive under Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah, they are. I mean, Brendan's a top coach. I think that's obvious for all to see. We saw it up in Scotland with Celtic in terms of what he did there and how quickly he got Celtic into a really consistent level of performance. And I think Leicester are the same. We've spoken about, the troubles of this season, but Leicester have been really, really good, really consistent. Jamie Vardy's missed a few games, which is always going to be a problem for them, but other players have stepped up to the plate, and the players you mentioned are showing real quality in attacking areas. So they've got a great balance, they've got a real consistent way of playing, and they're very competitive. It's no surprise to anyone where they are in the league. I think they've shown that again yesterday by the nature of their performance, that they're there and they're there to stay, and they're going to have to be taken seriously. The league looks like Manchester City are definitely favourites, but when you look beyond that, Leicester are definitely in amongst the best of the rest by the nature of their performance and the consistency of their performances.
It looks like we might get a bit more of a fight at the bottom than we thought as well, Jim. Fulham have certainly put 2 or 3 months' worth of football together now, and the results are starting to back up the performances. And Newcastle, among others, must be looking desperately over their shoulders.
Well, I was at Old Trafford last night, and it ended up a routine win, I think, whereas Newcastle had been disappointing in the first half against Chelsea and did better in the second. Last night they were good in the first, and they faded away in the second half. Going back to that win at Everton they had, Graham Jones had come in as a new coach, and he had changed the whole philosophy. He had changed their way of playing. Back four instead of back 3-5, and he went with a diamond midfield and 2 kind of wide attackers, 2 wide strikers. They had that in place again last night. It didn't quite come off. They're trying to be braver. They're trying to be more ambitious in how they play the game, but they seem to kind of slip back into that habit of just dropping deep all the time, retreating, and they can't quite get out of that. And Fulham, I must admit, a while ago, I think they were 12 points off the pace with Newcastle obviously in front of them. And I remember thinking, maybe they're, wrapped up with Sheffield United and West Brom and all 3 are going to drop. But I now would worry for Newcastle. I think, that they're going to enter a squeaky bum phase, and it's going to be very, very difficult for them. And we spoke about it last night in comms too. They've got an extremely difficult run-in when you look through what remaining fixtures they have, and that's not favourable as well. And of course, if it is tight, they do play Fulham away on the final day.
They do, I know. That could be some humdinger of a game if obviously all things are still alive there. Now listen, Davey, north of the border, you must be personally in dreamland. Everton win at the weekend. You've got your first love, Falkirk. I know they're not playing at the moment, but they're top of their division. Hearts top of the Championship, and Rangers now running away with it at the top of the SPL because, amazingly, perhaps it's not that amazing now, Celtic slip up again and Rangers just put the hammer down and it's all over, isn't it?
I think, all intents and purposes, I think this weekend's been a good weekend. I think the Rangers fans and players and staff feel it's so close now, and I think winning a difficult game after a game in Europe, Celtic slipping up last night, which was very unexpected. So I think Rangers are starting to believe it now, and it seems to be getting closer. So it's been a fantastic season from Rangers. You can't argue with the consistency of the performance. They're undefeated in the league. They've conceded very few goals at home. Even to concede a goal yesterday was very rare at home. and they're in a great position. There's still work to do, but they're massive favourites, and you'd fully expect them to go on and win. And as you say, it's been another European game on Thursday, so a chance to go into the last 16, I think it is, of the Europa League, which is a fantastic achievement as well. So it's a real opportunity to have a special season, and the league will always be the priority, but that European experience and that European journey that they've been on with so many games is great as well, really exciting. So long may it continue, and it's been a great season so far.
They'll be favourites, obviously, Jim, against Antwerp with an extraordinary first leg, and it would be, I think, quite interesting to see Steven Gerrard's side, were they to draw an English team of those left. It would be just a little benchmark as to just how good this Rangers team actually are.
Well, it's Steven Gerrard, isn't it? He has standards that he upheld all through his professional playing career, and he's doing likewise as a manager. He just won't accept second best. Unfortunately, I haven't got time really to watch SPL football at the moment, and I haven't been in touch with what Rangers are doing. I mean, I see the results obviously, and I know the position they're in the table, but it doesn't surprise me because of who's there, and Gary McAllister as well. And I think it's only 3 wins they need now, Rangers, to get the title sewn up, and they should have a more straightforward second leg, I would guess, against Antwerp. But the Rangers I remember will be the Rangers David Weir played for, because I go back to 2008 and that run to the UEFA Cup final, which was quite extraordinary. And I can remember praising the old boy now. I'm not just saying it to butter him up, but I can remember in Florence and doing a piece to camera, I think, had a pink tie on, and Andy Townsend accusing me of looking like I was going to a wedding than a football match. But that was an absolute incredible night, as was the night in Lisbon as well, when Whittaker broke through at the end and scored a great goal. It's just pity about the final, but yeah, that's the Rangers I remember. But they're back up there again, and Celtic have an awful lot to do now to react.
Well, indeed, I remember those nights, incredible tie, as you rightly point out, Jim. And me and Davey have spoken about Manchester and the incredible run that got them there, and albeit a disappointing finish on Football Pass's previous. But what does Steven do? Obviously, all things being equal, Davey gets the job done. It's a massive achievement to stop Celtic as well as to get Rangers back on top in Scotland. But what does he do in the summer? How does he go from where he is to the next level? What does he think about for the next year or two, assuming obviously he stays at Ibrox?
I think it's building on that. The big thing, obviously, in Scotland, with hopefully winning the league, is Champions League football and qualifying for that next stage. And we spoke about Rangers' UEFA Cup run 10 years ago, or over 10 years ago actually. Which seems like a lifetime ago. And I think Rangers getting back on that stage, back involved in Champions League football, that UEFA Cup run came off the back of a Champions League campaign where we never quite qualified and dropped into the UEFA Cup. So, there was a number of games whereby we had to play. Some of the memories we spoke about there in Lisbon and Florence and different places, and great fixtures like that. So, actually getting at the Champions League, which is the top table, obviously brings a level of income which attracts better players. Rangers have got a real consistency of selection, a real consistency of performance, but I'm sure the recruitment staff and the manager will be looking for that 1 or 2 special players who they can add to the good squad they've got to take them to that next level, to keep pushing on domestically, winning the league again, hopefully, and then making a real impact at the Champions League level, which is the next barrier for Rangers, I would say. Yeah.
And we'll obviously see what Celtic decide to do come the summer. And that brings us, in terms of Champions League, back in some ways to where we started, Jim, with that fierce fight for Champions League spots in England. It would be massive for Carlo and Everton to make it into the top 4. I think that's probably what he was hired to try and do. And it would be a bit of a nightmare, wouldn't it, for Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool to miss out?
Well, it would be, considering the levels that they've hit over the last 2-3 seasons to to not be in the top four certainly would be a massive blow to Liverpool. But such is the disruption. I'm not sure he's going to be able to manage that. They've got an awful lot to make up now, and I don't know whether they're going to be able to patch it together. I mean, it's not been a complete mess in terms of the football they've played. They've actually played some good football. I was at Leicester and they played really well in that game, and and they played some good football at the weekend as well, but they just can't find a way to go. So, yeah, I think in the longer term, it's ridiculous that we're even talking about this kind of situation, but it is what it is. And I mean, you can't ignore the facts. They have suffered an awful lot of ill fortune, and there's nothing guaranteed for them.
No, indeed. Never is, nor for anyone else except perhaps the team at the top of the Premier League and indeed the top of the Scottish Premiership. Thanks both. Thank you very much to Davey and to Jim. Delighted to get your thoughts on the Monday football on Football Pass.